Okay, guys, I'm here to tell you the story of how Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, darling of the right, is being manipulated somehow into aligning herself with a trans activist leftist named Keffals in a crusade against a website called Kiwi Farms. This is a problem, and the lack of thought that's going into the reactions of Marjorie Taylor Greene is a big problem. We need to expect and demand better from our politicians, especially when they're supposed to be on the side of liberty, and we've got to call them out when they're going to go directly against that liberty position and align themselves with a leftist lunatic who is mad at Kiwi Farms for exposing their grooming of children on multiple occasions. All right, that's the intro. Here we go. Here's the story that's going on right now. The backstory is there's a website called Kiwi Farms. If you watch my live show, you know I've mentioned Kiwi Farms several times. What it is simply a forum that allows people to say basically whatever they want about a person. This forum has grown into this place to watch typically internet celebrities of some sorts. If you go to Kiwi Farms, you can see I have a thread there as well of people talking about me. Some of the things said in the thread are flattering and wonderful. Other things are not so flattering, and there are tons of outright falsehoods and leaps of logic and horrible things said about me or family members or friends or whatever. That's the nature of free speech, and that's the exchange you have for being in public. Enter Keffals. Keffals is a weirdo. I don't know how else to describe this person. I'm not super familiar with them. However, they are a loudmouth trans activist. That means that doesn't mean, in this instance, they are transgender, male to female, and they are an activist outspoken on social media about this issue and issues related to it. Keffals also happens to be accused of using Keffals' own words and tweets and Discord servers and everything of being into sort of grooming children into being trans against their parents' knowledge or wishes and without the guidance or assistance of any medical professionals at all, literally using a bathtub recipe for hormone replacement therapy. I wish I was making that up, and that's just a smidgen of slice of things that Kiwi Farms has exposed of Keffals using Keffals' public tweets, posts, videos, etc., etc., etc. The lore goes much deeper. You can look it up yourself. I don't know what all about it is true, but what I do know is that in the world you have the right to say quite a bit about someone, unless you're spreading intentional falsehoods with the purpose of, defaming their character. In this case, they're again pointing to specific things Keffals has done and said. Keffals does not like this, does not like the existence of a thread that exposes these things and potentially might hurt or impact her pro-trans message or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not in this person's brain, thank Christ. That being said, Keffals has been on a week-long crusade at the recording of this video to try and get Kiwi Farms taken down, and has successfully, somehow, even though they have basically a pretty small social media footprint, has managed to have Kiwi Farms trend for multiple days. Usually this works by picking up people who aren't familiar with the actual facts of what's going on, but they are familiar with lots of buzzwords and have an eager retweet button, and so it gets spread far and wide to a bunch of ignorant people on the internet. Enter the Marjorie Taylor Greene situation. Marjorie Taylor Greene was just swatted at her home residence in Georgia. Now, to be upfront and very, very clear and candid about this, I have been swatted at my house. It was handled rather professionally and well by law enforcement in my area, and that does not make it any less frustrating, angering, a little bit terrifying, because once people know who you are, where you live, or whatever that may be, whatever concoction they need to get this to happen, they can employ the state through a phone call to cause grief in your life. Now, for me, it turned out relatively okay. The police were professional. There was no kicking down of doors or guns pointed at children or anything like that, right? For other people, it's not so lucky, and there have even been officer-involved fatalities due to swatting in the past, I don't know, year or 2 years. There was a big case where this happened. Someone answered the door. It wasn't even the person who is the target of the swatting. They had given a false address or a previous address, and that person was shot and killed by police. Extremely tragic situation. So, I empathize with Marjorie Taylor Greene and her frustration over the swatting. It should never happen. But this is where the story gets complicated. Marjorie Taylor Greene is laying the blame on the feet of Kiwi Farms. The same blame is being laid on Kiwi Farms for Keffals and Keffals' situation. Now, the reason Marjorie Taylor Greene is blaming Kiwi Farms idiotically has to do with the 911 phone call where the person calling in the SWAT on MTG said they were from Kiwi Farms and gave their username as one of the moderators there. Now, basic logic would suggest if you were committing a crime like a swatting, you would not tell the police where you are, like, representing or who you are at all. Typically with a swatting, someone would give a false identity because it's a criminal act. So you don't often call the police and say, hello, I'm Nick Rekieta. I'm calling in a SWAT call on so-and-so, unless it's real. Like, if it's a real call and you're like, oh my God, something's really happening, you might do this. But Marjorie Taylor Greene should know that this was a false thing that was used to cause her grief, not because someone was genuinely concerned of an ongoing criminal act at her house that they were trying to rectify, specifically like dead children or whatever they called in. It was a horrific story, and it always is, because they're trying to get police to respond dramatically to the situation. Marjorie Taylor Greene and her staff should know that this is almost guaranteed to not have anything to do with someone from Kiwi Farms calling this in, and is much more likely, the much more likely scenario is that the person who is on a public crusade, or one of their supporters, who they would never ask to do this, but this is how the internet works. Someone will do something in support of a movement without being asked to do it. And that insulates everybody from any sort of liability. It's much more likely that someone who is a fan of Keffals, or maybe someone who's trying to set up Keffals, would do this, blame Kiwi Farms, because maybe they have some personal motivation against Kiwi Farms, or they're on the bandwagon, it doesn't matter. But they would blame the place that they want to be taken down. Like, that is the most logical outcome. Like, if someone swatted someone else and they were mad at me, they would call in as me. That would make sense. And then that, like, but that, right? Like, it doesn't actually make sense, because why would I do that? Why would someone from Kiwi Farms, who is a happy user, a moderator, or whatever they claim to be, call in to a thing that would guaranteed have negative repercussions for Kiwi Farms if it were true? This is a false flag operation. Now, not from, like, the government, but just from an idiot. The problem is Marjorie Taylor Greene is falling hook, line, and sinker for this bait, and she is aligning herself against free speech, against liberty, against the basic rights of people to communicate on the internet, on a private website, and say really whatever they want, and she is now trying to join in with Keffals in getting this taken down. That's a bad take every single day of the week. Marjorie Taylor Greene, girl, you gotta stop this. Talk to a staffer or whatever, find out what Kiwi Farms is, and then ignore it forever, because it's not for you, it's not for most people on Earth. Kiwi Farms is a place where people get together and gossip. You don't have to like it, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere. And if we're going to start banning websites or entities or whatever that are the source of swattings, Call of Duty's got to go. Fortnite's got to go. Twitter's got to go. Facebook's got to go. YouTube's got to go. But Google Messenger has got to go. Every website where communication has occurred is likely the source of a swatting on a given timeline. It's just how it happens. And that's part of the nature of freedom. Unfortunately, some people will take freedom and use it negatively. That is not an excuse to start banning people, and that is such an anti-liberty take that I wouldn't expect it from anyone purporting to be on the side of freedom, on the side of the Constitution, and on the side of liberty. So, Marjorie, I implore you, knock this shit off, because it's really stupid. Stop aligning yourself with someone who is so antithetical to your core principles, and they are using you. They're using you to accomplish their anti-liberty goal. That's what's going on. By the way, the person you're accidentally aligning with hates everything you do and say about trans people, about trans children, about transgender policies, and proposed legislation that you've put forward. All of the work that you do, this person hates, and yet you're aligning with them due to your unwitting attack on a website that almost guaranteed had nothing to do with the very, very unfortunate thing that happened to you. Instead, start employing the resources at the FBI. Start proposing legislation for tougher crackdowns on things like swatting. Start finding ways to go after people who try to use the state to put other people in danger. They're the enemy, and it was never Kiwi Farms. It was always horrific monsters who do this to advance their political aims, not to gossip about celebrities and politicians on the internet. Hope that clarifies things for you guys. This has been a wild day. We'll see you soon. Peace. Peace.